Okay, hi, how are you doing? It's Ms. Riley. As you already know, I am recording this, excuse me, to show you a better way how to do your lifespan term paper. So what I'm going to do is actually share my screen with you. I will be doing that for the rest of the video. Don't worry, this is not going to take forever, but if you were confused, if you're lost, if you missed it the first time, here it is now. So as you all know, I started out by giving you an outline or a way to make an outline. Here's what it was. We had those little pyramids. We came up with our topics, keywords, thesis statement, etc. So I also gave you an idea of where to look for information. And then it comes time to actually starting to write the paper. So as you may remember, we began with the topic. So my topic here is Dr. Grunya Sugareva and her work with autistic children. I came up, even just in my early noodling around days with this project, came up with some keywords I could search on. That way I don't come up empty when it comes to research later on. So this stuff I don't see. You don't show me this. This is, if I were a student, this would be my notes. And I know in comp you had to do, sorry about the noises, I'm getting emails. In comp you had to do all the steps of the paper. You had to do pretty much every little bit was handed in and it would be evaluated by the professor. That's not really how it works once you get past comp. So I don't need to see all this stuff, although I do recommend you do it. So keywords, this is why we use keywords, so we don't just keep searching on the same thing over and over and then tell our professor there's nothing out there. There is stuff out there. I chose people that specifically would have at least a couple articles floating around the internet. You can find it, just might take a little digging. That's why we come up with some keywords here. So this is just notes for right now. Another note to self, although this one will be worked into the paper, is your thesis statement. The thesis statement is basically the backbone of your paper. Everything else you write is going to hang off that backbone, just like everything in the body comes off the backbone. The ribs, the organs are there, whole mess of stuff. So the thesis here that I have, it's not my prettiest, but that's okay. It just needs to work. I state my topic, Dr. Sugareva. What did she do? She identified the cluster of symptoms that later on we will call autism spectrum disorder, which I should put in the word disorder here. Excuse me. And what else? She didn't just identify this, she did stuff. She worked with her clinicians and she improved the care of these patients. So I have my subject right here. I'm just going to color code her. You don't have to do this, but I found when I used to teach comp, I found sometimes it helped. So I'm going to make her yellow. What did she do? Identified, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so I'm going to make that green. What else did she do? Worked with her clinicians, etc., etc. Okay. Make that blue, very pretty. This is my paper. So I have my main topic. She's going to be throughout the paper, but I have two main things she did. That's what I'm really talking about. Her identification of the symptoms and her work with her clinicians. So my paper, if you think about it, 4 pages, 2 and 2. We have 2 pages about how she identified the symptoms, and then 2 pages about what she did once she identified them. Well, what did she do for her patients? So my outline is going to follow suit. When you begin a paper, you're going to have some sort of introductory paragraph. Some people like to teach students to start with the intro. I think you should just start anywhere you are. You can always go back and add the intro later. Like it's important, but it's not important to literally build it in that order, as long as it ends up in that order. That being said, I was taught to do it myself, so I usually have at least a couple sentences of introduction when I begin, just when I'm getting my thoughts together. So I started noodling around, I came up with another paragraph, etc. And I have this on my outline. It's labeled under this, paragraph 1, intro. So I'm going to actually turn this into a paragraph as I go along here. And while I'm here, I may as well format it properly. So let me scoop my little head down. I'm going to turn this into Times New Roman, size 12, and then the magic double spacing. Yeah, ooh, it's beautiful. And indent. Now I can get rid of paragraph 1 because I know it's a paragraph. I don't need to see it. As you're writing, oh, don't forget to save. Okay. As you're writing, you're going to be doing this with each paragraph. So your outline is going to be turning into the paper as you go along. And eventually you're going to erase all of this before you turn it into your professor. Oops, there we go. Sometimes you got to noodle around a bit with the spacing. And this, I mean, you can keep your outline till the moment you hand it in. You can write it, you can put it up on a whiteboard. I really don't care what you do, but have it out first, write it out first, and then add on to it, erase it as you go along. You will thank me later for that. So as you go along, just erase the scaffolding that you've created for yourself. Also too, you don't want to ignore the heading. So with APA formatting, we have what's called a running head, and that's going to be the title of the paper across each page. Mine's going to be nice and plain. I'm just calling it the work of Dr. Dr. Sukhareva, the work of Dr. Sukhareva. I like to be sure to change the font just to make it, oh, what did I do? Okay. I like to change the font and the heading to make it match. And if you weren't sure what I just did, I double clicked on the header. So with Word, just talking about the way stuff looks on the page right now, we're not looking at the content this second. With Word, your paper actually has 2 regions, okay? So hold on a moment. I'm gonna show you a magic trick. Boom, okay. So this is sort of the way the page works. All this white space around the edge, this is your margins. These are 1-inch margins. That's where your header goes. All this grid line stuff, that's the area you can type in. That's where your paper goes. Normally, we don't have to deal with that. So most, like 9 times out of 10, you'll never have to use this feature here. But just to give you an idea of where the paper goes on the page, how the paragraph looks on the page. That's what you're working with. So we have to have the nice white margins on the side in case anyone, a professor, wants to write in commentary. We have to have the running head across the top of the paper. This is really a holdover from back in the day when you'd print a paper out and send it to your professor, or rather hand it to them in person. So back in the day, a couple of years ago, we would have stacks and stacks of papers, and God forbid something wasn't stapled and you dropped it. Inevitably, you're going to drop student papers. You're going to misplace stuff. You need to know what page goes with which paper. That's why we do a running head. Nowadays, though, even though we're reading everything online or on a screen, I should say, it's still really helpful because if you read enough of these, you kind of lose track. So it helps to have that little reminder at the top of each page. What are we talking about? What's the topic? Bam, there it is. Keeps you oriented. So I'm going to turn these grid lines off and return us to the page as normal. So this is my intro paragraph, and here's my thesis. While I'm working on stuff, I like to keep the thesis in bold so I remember to keep coming back to it. So I'm going to back that up, put it on my intro paragraph. Don't forget, we have 2 main things here. We have the discovery she made, which I think was green. And then we have the work with her clinicians. That was blue. Okay, so we're going to make sure we cover this throughout the paper. So there's one paragraph. Done. I am about one quarter of the way done with my paper. Because once you write a good, solid college level paragraph with a quotation in it, that's going to help grow the paragraph, and that's what's going to fatten up the paper, basically. So don't forget to keep fixing your font as you go along. I mean, you're going to do one more pass through before you hand it in, of course. Yes. But I should not see boldface and pretty colors. I should just see nice black and white text, very minimalist. So next paragraph, we have to, what did she identify? The cluster of symptoms. Okay, cool. So because I'm your professor, I went ahead and did this ahead of time. So my next paragraph, I wanted to know, well, what did she discover? What are the symptoms of autism spectrum disorder? So we got to do a little research. into the internet. And we are going to go to our school library website, Jersey College. Come on, load. Okay. jerseycollege.edu. Student resources. Oh, excuse me, library. Virtual library login. I'm already logged in. Your login should be everything that's in your email address up to the @ So if I was a student, my login would be liz.riley, just like it's in my student email address. And my password is student. Because I'm not a student, my email address is eriley, because, apparently I'm a great big old professor. So it's eriley and password is teacher. So either way, it comes to the same source. Now, I just want some basic information. What are the symptoms of autism? So I'm not going to noodle around with books or even journal articles right now. I'm going to go to Nursing Reference Center Plus. If you have not used this, you have to start. You pay for it, you got to get into it. This thing is amazing. There is an app, or rather there are apps. I think now there's, I don't know where it says on here. I know it's on iPhone, and I'm pretty sure they have one for Android now, for those of us Android users. I haven't really played with it on the phone because my phone is about to die. The poor thing is very old. So your mileage may vary, but regardless, what is this? Nursing Reference Center Plus. It's like a Wikipedia for nursing. It has spotlight topics, and of course, everything is wall-to-wall COVID right now. But if you look up here, you can just search something if you want to, like literally like Googling, or you can just browse through diseases, different nursing skills. You can look up different medications, etc. And it just kind of keeps going here. There are actual books on here as well, if you need it, like for other classes. You're probably not going to need this for my class. I still want you to get into it though, because it's really, really, really going to help you in med-surg. I cannot overestimate that. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to plug in autism spectrum. I spelled that right. This would be embarrassing if I did. Aha, boom. Okay. So we have some results. Simple phrase, autism spectrum. What are we getting here? You can see search results, 1 out of 10 of 139. We're not going through all of those. Absolutely not. What we're doing is going to the left and we're clicking quick lessons. Now we're at 47 results, much better. So now we're going to take a little tour here. What do we have here? A whole lot of different syndromes and stuff, but honestly, the first one, they will bold the most helpful one for you. Autism spectrum disorder. And the next one looks pretty interesting too, Asperger's syndrome. So let's start off with autism spectrum disorder. We're going to click that and see what it does. So it opens something that kind of looks like Wikipedia here. Let's make this a little larger. It will read the article to you if you want.
Autism spectrum disorder. Contents. 1. Description/etiology.
Okay, we're not going to go through all that. So it's literally going to read everything on the page to you. If you just want to use that, you can go right ahead. Or you can use, I'm just going to close that. I'm going to use these links to bop around the article here, just like you would in Wikipedia, except all this information, this is perfectly fine. It is vetted. It is up to date. 2019, still not too bad. This is absolutely okay. So description and etiology. Here we go. Autism spectrum disorder is a pervasive developmental disorder manifests in early childhood, characterized by, okay, looks good to me. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go back to the paragraph I'm working on here. So with this next paragraph, what did she discover? Symptoms. What are symptoms of autism? So I have the start of a sentence here. Okay, so right below, I'll go back to that later. Below that, I'm going to put a quote mark, pop in that quotation, and then I'm going to cite it before I do anything else. So what is this? How do we cite this? Well, who wrote it? March, Shub, Pravikov, okay. By March, Shub, and Pravikov, 2019. Beauteous. March. This is why another reason I like to use Nursing Reference Center, because the reference is right on top. A lot of times you have to go digging for it in the bottom. It's very annoying. Shub, Pravikov. Oops, I messed that up. Vikoff. 2019. That is the simplest thing to do. Just put the last names and the year in, and that will prevent, that's the first step to preventing plagiarism. So I'm going to scoot to the bottom under my references. I have one already set up. That's good. So now I got to go back to here, and I have to grab the citation, the full citation now for this article. How do I do that? I'm not going to try to piece it together. I'm going to save myself a lot of pain. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to look on the tools section. Okay. If you don't see it, there should be a button that is marked citation. If you don't see it, come to the left and switch to PDF. Same thing. A PDF is the same as the HTML. Okay. So the quick lesson sheet. Add to folder, export. Let's see what happens if we export. No, well, that's, no. We don't want to go, that's too crazy. So we're going to email this to ourselves. All right, so here's a handy little trick. Usually with journal articles, at least, you can find a button there that says cite. With this one, for whatever reason, it doesn't have it. There's still more than one way to pet this cat. So you're going to hit the little envelope and you're going to email this article to yourself because it will give you a citation. It'll do it for you. Don't overlook this here, honestly. So you're going to select brief citation. You're going to select citation format, APA, and you're going to email it to yourself. Oops, I'm going to spell my own last name. Oh God. Oh no. It's because I'm nervous. I know people are watching. Okay. I'm gonna do. Okay, subject. Site, not cute. And I just want it plain text, so I'm gonna hit send. So I have now made this emailed to me. What I want to do is, first of all, I want to grab that, but I also don't really want to showcase my whole email. So I'm going to turn the share off for just a moment. Okay, good. So you're just going to watch me open my email. This is just for security reasons because I have all sorts of top secret associate dean assistant stuff in my email. Okay, come on, where is it? So, oh, good. Here it is. I can turn this around again. Share. All right. So here's what it looks like when it comes in. This is my email inbox, but the junk folder. For some reason, it always falls in my junk folder. It will come from support@ebsco.com. So if you don't see it in your inbox, check your junk mail. So I'm going to open it. Get rid of this. Okay. La 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 la. Oh, look, here it is. References. Copy. Oops. Damn it. Copy. And we're going to go straight back into our references, paste. Put that point at the end here. Now your references, if you really want to go the extra mile, they should be in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to put that first. March comes before Simmons. All right. That's the reference page. As I go along, I'm just going to leave that at the bottom of my draft. This is a draft, mind you. It's turning from an outline into a draft as we're looking. I'm going to keep adding. So by the time I finish the paper, this will be at the bottom anyway, and I won't have to worry about it. So back to my paragraph. All right. So what did Sukareva discover? Let's erase some of this scaffolding. and turn this into a paragraph. So let's write a paragraph together. You're going to see how this is done. So today, autism spectrum disorders are a household word. Many people are very familiar with the concept of the spectrum and its general signs. Symptoms of AUTIS spectrum disorders are generally diagnosed in early childhood and include a wide variety, wide, not wade, okay, wide variety of social and communication delays. Now, this is me talking. This is the sentence I'm writing, but I want to make sure I'm showcasing that quote I found because that quote supports what I just said. So I'm going to put a little colon in there. I'm going to back the quote up against it. Then I'm going to put a period at the end of it. Now let's make some magic happen. Times New Roman 12. Where's my double space? Double space. And it looks like the font color has changed. So I'm just going to go back, make sure it's all the same color. Look at that. We have another half a paragraph written. Okay, so eventually we'll go back, we'll reread it, make sure it makes sense. But this is just how it's done. Okay, so I put a quote in there. I have me talking and I have a quote talking. Now I'm going to talk about the quote. So what are we discussing here? The signs and symptoms. Autism spectrum disorder. Let's take the bold out while we're here. ASD is a pervasive, it is a pervasive developmental disorder that manifests in early childhood and is characterized by severe impairment, yada, yada. Okay, the most common, because when we're looking at Sukareva's work, just as an FYI, you probably won't know this because this is not very well known, unless you do. But what Sukareva really identified really was the excuse me, the lighter end of the spectrum, which we know for a while we were calling Asperger's syndrome. And she did it before Asperger, about 20 years before he did. But his name won, and we're going to find out why his name won. So the most common form of ASD, and we can say ASD now because we've mentioned, this way you don't have to keep typing autism spectrum over and over. Most common form, or I should say most familiar form of ASD is commonly known as syndrome, characterized by, and Asperger's is characterized by basically the same thing it says up here, characterized by social by delays or deficits in social interaction and communication, has long been considered to have been discovered, I can't type, big dirty secret, by Dr. Hans. By Dr. Hans Asperger. However, recent scholarship has shown that 20 years prior to Asperger's work, Dr. Grunwald, Dr. Grunwald identified and treated the same disorder. Okay. So looking back, see all these little bullet points, this is other stuff I want to talk about. Okay. So Asperger, what did he do? Why do we need to mention him? Done. More details about her work. We'll get there. We'll get there. So let's check in and see if we can just get maybe one detail about Hans Asperger. So going back to this, let's see if we can sort of control F and peek around here. See if we can find anything. There's Asperger. Okay, what else? Oh, he's only mentioned once. Dang it. So this is not going to talk too much about Hans Asperger. This, and as well it shouldn't, because this is just a quick reference sheet, tells you what it is. This is not going to go into the history of it. But remember, let's go back to the other tab to our original results. Oops. I'm going to go back. Asperger syndrome in children and adolescents. Gee, that's going to discuss Asperger syndrome. We have autism spectrum disorder. Asperger's is one part of that. We need to go into Asperger's right now. So we're going to do the same thing we just did and find something about this guy and something about this syndrome. So let's read. Okay, so this paragraph has a lot of details about what constitutes Asperger's. All right, so that's description area. Facts and figures, risk factors, what you're supposed to ask the patients, treatment goals, and some references. So this right here, I can tell you right now, this is going to be the meat of the matter. You don't have to go into the nursing information, the patient education, the family education, not for me. Later on, yes. But for me, we're just going to stick with basically description and etiology of whatever it is you're working with. And not all of you are going to be so lucky as to have one of these quick sheets, quick lesson sheets. But since it's here, I may as well show you how to use it. So let's get some more details here. Let's find a quote we like. La, 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 la. Okay, children and adolescents with Asperger's syndrome have normal or superior intelligence, but commonly demonstrate social insensitivity and seem indifferent toward family members. They often have a limited number of highly focused interests that take precedence over other general activities and relationships. They might gather large volumes of information and talk incessantly regarding okay, I'm grabbing that. Control C. Into the paper it goes. All right, so remember, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the symptoms here. So in her work, CUKHR made the same observations Asperger did about children with this disorder. Noticed that, here's a quote, end quote. Now, let's cite before we do anything else. Go right back to our source. Who wrote this sucker? Schub. Okay. So this is going to be Schub 2018. SCHUB. Okay. Oh, I think I spelled her wrong before. Okay. All right. We're going to reformat so it's nice and pretty and easier to read. All right, and make sure everything is the same color there. Okay, now that's a pretty hefty quote, honestly. If you paste in a line and you find that it's more than 3 lines of text, we're going to want to trim it down a little bit, just a touch. So, because remember, you've only got 4 pages to play with. You're not writing a thesis here. So what are we trying to do with this quote? We're trying to talk about the general symptoms of what we call Asperger's disorder, things that Sukareva noticed back in her day. So the previous sentence, Sukareva made the same observations as Asperger did. She noticed that children and adolescents have normal, social insensitivity. Okay. Seeming indifferent towards family members. We can kind of skip that because that's social insensitivity kind of covers it. So we're going to put in a little, what's called an ellipsis, okay? So when you take out part of a quotation, you can put in an ellipsis that's dot space, dot space, dot space, but you can't take out anything really, really important. You got to be careful what you're taking out. You just don't want anything redundant here. And you don't want to do it more than once. So you want to go for ellipses are very expensive. So we'll use one here. It's okay. We took out something that doesn't change the meaning of the quote. Let's go on here. They often have a limited number of interests. It takes precedence. They might gather large volumes of information. Yeah, you know, on second thought, we don't really need all that. We're going to end it there. Bam. Oops. There. So this, it says the same thing. Children and adolescents have normal to superior intelligence. They have a lot of social insensitivity, and they have high focus on certain interests. And that sort of, if you'll forgive the turn of phrase, trumps socialization. We can still get that from this trimmed down quote. So this leaves us a little more room to talk here. Even though SUKHR found out FOUND these same features as Asperger did. I think I misspelled Asperger. Oh my goodness. Yep, Asperger did. Her scholarship, or I should say research, did not get the international acclaim his did. Aha, now we have a little thing. We can talk about this in the next paragraph. See how I just set myself up to go to the next paragraph? Okay, time for more research. Let's find out what happened. Why do we know Asperger, but we don't know Sukareva? All right, so we're now outside the bounds of this. Okay, we're going to go off to the internet. Okay, we're going to go to, I'm going to Google her. Yes, I know Wikipedia is there. Ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. Go into here. Okay, so we have, as you can see, I've already looked at a couple of these articles here. So we're going to open two. This first one, we're going to skip Wikipedia. And do you see here, the reason I really zoomed in on this, .gov. We're going to grab that. And we're going to look at that one first. When possible, try to go for edu or .gov. So what is this? What are we looking at? Holy crap, this is weird. This is not the Jersey College site. What's going on? Cats and dogs are living together. It's chaos. This is a library of articles and books and other publications run by the U.S. National Library of Medicine. It is really, really helpful later on when you're going to get really in depth with stuff. That being said, it's not a bad resource even now. Okay, so what do we have here? What are we looking at? We're going to ignore the stuff about COVID. Okay, fine. So the anatomy of this page, it kind of works like Nursing Reference Center. It's going to have the name of the publication, so you know it's legit. It's going to have information about when this article, before we're even reading the article, we're going to have information about the article itself. So we see it came out, Journal of Pediatric Neurosciences. It's going to have links to it. We could click this if we wanted, okay? The more honest a source is, the more links on the page that actually go to other resources, not like Amazon links or something. So we see it was written in 2017. Okay, a little older, but okay, fine. That's for lifespan, that's okay. Let's go on the right-hand side here. Formats. We can download this in a whole bunch of ways. If we have an ebook reader, we could download it there. We could print it. Oh, look, we can cite it. Click. There it is, the citation, APA. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that right now. If you'll excuse me, I'm just going to pop that into my paper and scoot, scoot, scoot references, Control V. Okay, oops, that's out of alphabetical order. Oh no. So it goes M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. Okay, done. Turn myself to where I was before. Hit save. Now we're going to read this article. So look at the title, Tribute to Dr. Sugareva, the woman who first described infantile autism. Right below it are the people that wrote this article. So because it says tribute, we know it's not going to be exhaustive. This is just them saying, hey, this lady was awesome, and we need to say this. So now we're going to keep going. First, we're going to scan the page. Look, the article's already over. It's literally this big. This was a letter to the editor that they wrote to this journal about this lady. We can still cite this. This is fine. It's a little unusual, but it's okay. So, this was, remember, written in 2017. Dear Sir, so I guess they're Posar and Visconti are talking to the editor. More than 20 years have passed since the release of the English translation of the original paper by Sugareva, entitled, I'm not even going to try to say it, probably Psychopathy of Schizo something in Kinder's Children. So, okay, so it's something with mental health in children. But the international literature on autism has not yet given the right acknowledgement to this child psychiatrist who still remains unknown to many authors. Okay, so straight away we know that people do know about her work, but they ain't talking about it. Why? People in any given field, whether it's psychology, history, English, nursing, they talk. Not every person gets the proper credit. So if someone's not getting credit, if someone's not getting talked about, there's a reason. We're going to find out why that is. According to the official history of autism, the first description of individuals who today would be diagnosed, oops, little typo there. This is why they need English teachers. People who would today, we would say, have ASD, respectively dates from the work of Leo Kanner and Hans Asperger. In 1943, Kanner, an American child psychologist, a psychiatrist of Austrian-Hungarian origin, described a clinical picture in 11 children that later has been considered the classical early, yes, so this description was considered classical early infantile, meaning childhood autism. In 1944, Hans Asperger, an Austrian pediatrician, described autistic psychopathy, his words, in 4 boys that many years later took the name Asperger's syndrome, which was later recognized in the 4th edition of the DSM. So that's when it hit the big time. In 1994, it took that long. So I'm taking that. Control C. Where's my paper? Okay, Control V, cite, oops, wait, opening quote. Okay, I'm going to go back and write something on top of that, but I'm just getting it in position. Now, some of these things here may have footnotes. You can just erase that as you go along. Okay, so who were the authors again? Posar and Visconti, 2017. Okay. Posarnvisconti. 27. Bam. Okay. Now, you don't really want to start a paragraph on a quote if you can help it. It's just not a good idea to do, at least not at this level here. So, looking back at the last sentence we wrote, even though Sugareva found the same features as Asperger did, her research did not get the international acclaim his did. Okay. It is commonly that ASPL is working with Connor. Oh, what's his name? What's his first name? The first time you introduce a theorist, you should probably use both their names. Leo Kanner. Okay. Kanner studied children in their care and identified what would later become a diagnosis in the 1940s. Colon, I'm going to do that again. Alongside doctor, let's put everyone's honorifics in there. They earned it. Even if they stole credit, they earned it. Okay, yada, da, da, da. Okay, great. Let's see if we can trim this down a little bit. Described autistic psychopathy. Okay, I think we can take out the 4 boys and the many years later. That period took the name, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we trimmed down a little bit. All right. Let's go back. Let's keep reading. However, oh, yes, yes, the drama sets in. However, already in 1926, Dr. Sukareva, who was then active in the Soviet Union, had described 6 boys presenting with a clinical picture that, as for the features and evolution, is fully compatible with ASD. Okay, so what that means is they identified this in 1943, but she was already there in 26, and she went and did it. And I will tell you right now, some of the problems here, why she is not credited, is because her name was mistranslated so badly. It was like mangled beyond recognition. So if you knew her name and you were trying to look for her before now, you wouldn't have found it because they kept writing her name wrong. That would be like if you wanted to credit me with something and you spelled my name GHQBY. You're not going to find me. I'm not going to get credit. It's just going to be the wrong name. So what we're going to do now is paraphrase, which is another thing we can do. Okay, it has since been realized in the field that in the 1920s, Dr. G-R-E-N-Y-S-U Sukareva did similar research with children in her care and identified the same clinical picture. I can't type today. Same clinical picture that Connor took credit for 20 years after the fact. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Okay. This is because, among other reasons, this is due to the very simple but fatal error of mistranslating her surname from from Cyrillic. When the papers she wrote were published, and in Russia she's known, but in the rest of the world there's a problem here. Translated, her last name was misspelled as, and I'm gonna have to go get that, Sucharewa, that nonsense name, leading to an omission of credit in the English-speaking world. Okay, and since we kind of said the same thing that Posar and Visconti did, we're going to give them credit there because that is their observation, that's their work. So even though this is not a direct quote, it's a paraphrase, and we're still going to credit them. And that's okay. So we're done with that paragraph. It's that one's done for now. I'm going to change the font. I'm going to make it nice and pretty. Make sure okay, everything's the same color. Beautiful. So let's back up and look at this page. Look at this paper here. Already we have almost 2 full pages. I know this is a long video. I get it. But this is how fast this goes, honestly. So you're going to keep going on like this. You're just going to keep rocking and rolling until you hit the end. All right. I'm going to stop halfway through because I've written enough papers in my life. To be perfectly frank, I'm kind of done here. But once in a while, sort of zoom out and then zoom back in and work on what you're doing. And that will show you how you're coming along, okay? Before you hand it in, take a moment and look over it. Save periodically. You don't have to write the whole paper in one go. This is going really fast because I've literally written and read a billion of these things. But you're probably going to want to take a little more time because I know writing, it's tough, especially if you don't like it. So it's totally okay. Don't forget to take off any funky formatting before you hand it in. So we're going to take off any highlights. We're going to unbold the thesis statement. It's okay, yada, yada. So before you hand it in, it really should look like this, nice and pretty. And that's that. Okay, so as we get closer to the due date, the link to submit is going to open up. The TA will not open it up ahead of time. I've tried, I'm sorry about that. So just use your time wisely, save it. Don't forget where you saved it, give it a name. You can see the top of my screen says outline for the paper. Don't just name it paper, then you'll never know what the heck it is. Try to keep it to one file and just overwrite it as you go along. Just clean up as you go. And this will really save you a lot of issues later on because you can see how relatively quickly we just did half a paper like this. So I'm going to stop the share and say that's about it. I will see you soon. Take care. Enjoy. Even if you don't enjoy writing a paper, try to find something you enjoy, try to find something in there, or at least look forward to having it done. I'm sure you're going to do a great job. So you all take care and I'll see you soon.